Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Jess Hilarious, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got some special guests joining us this morning.
Yes, indeed.
We have Pastor Carl Lentz and his wife, Laura Lentz. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Why are you laughing?
He's not a pastor anymore.
He's not a pastor?
I didn't know that you could not be a pastor no more.
I thought
I
this is...
mean, you can call me whatever you want. It's all good.
How does
technically?
Yeah.
I'm not a
Technically,
pastor because
he's
I'm
not
not
anymore.
pastoring a church, but
got
people
you?
still call me Pastor Carl. all
But I
the time.
thought it's like a doctor. Like
Yeah. Once
because you may
you're
not be
always
practicing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
A lot of people feel like that, but yeah.
Well, let's...
How are y'all first and foremost?
We are incredible. We're
Right.
super grateful for where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's
Thank
go
you for
back a little
having
bit. You're a friend to the room. You've been up here numerous times.
Yeah.
You've helped me on my journey. You helped Charlamagne on his journey. And then it seems like chaos happened. So for people that don't know, you were a pastor. You were a pastor at
Hillsong.
Hillsong.
So New York City, yep.
And all of a sudden we seen an Instagram post that is still on your page that says you're taking time for your family, a lot of going on. So what happened? Break down what happened. There's been rumors. People have been talking about it. So what actually happened?
The quickest way to answer that is that I made mistakes that I covered up, and it came back to really cause a lot of damage, and mainly to my family. So I was unfaithful in my marriage, covered it up, and it just ended up kind of leaking into every part of my life, and it led to me losing my job, no longer pastoring, and led to some other stuff that kind of had a big ripple effect. But that's the quickest version. Is I made huge mistakes that cost a lot, hurt a lot of people, and I've been on a journey ever since of trying to make it right and take a huge advantage of a second shot at this.
It's one of those things like where it's who does the go-to person go to? Like if you're the go-to person for so many people, who do you go to?
Well, if I would have had your book, that
Right.
title, it really defines kind of how I feel about life, because I did have some people I could have gone to. I just didn't know how to be honest. I found out a lot about my brokenness through this trial, and I just didn't know. So I think there was a part of me that I just was not ready to talk about or be honest about, and it cost me. But I did have opportunities to get help, and it's 100% on me. There were people there who would have helped, who would have listened, and I just made the wrong choice.
Do people give Carl Lentz grace? And the reason why I ask that is for most people's knowledge, and I always discuss it, when you deal with a pastor or reverend or somebody that you feel like is close to the church, right? You feel like since they do so much or supposed to do so much work on themselves, and since they study, they should know what's right. So when the person that people go to make the same mistakes that people go to, do you give them the same grace, right? Because it almost feels like
That's a good question.
like you're effing with people. Like, no, you tell people what to do, what they shouldn't do, and what they're not. And then
You're still a human, though.
People forget that people are also human.
Still a human, and a lot of the things that have been sent my way are fair, because the Bible's pretty clear. If you're going to be a teacher or a pastor, your life has to be at a standard that isn't normal. There's more required, more expected. So I have been given grace by some people, and I appreciate it. And there's other people who give no grace, and I get that too, because ultimately, if you have a position like I did, it demands your life looks a certain way, and there was times when mine didn't look like that. So I wasn't really looking for grace other than the human side of it. Like, yes, I failed as a pastor in that time, but as a human being, I'm trying to not be defined by that moment. You can change your story. You don't have to let that moment be the thing that defines the rest of your life. And so in that moment, yes, I appreciate grace. But in the bigger picture, I was a pastor. You're called to live a life that's higher in every single way, as far as your off pulpit life, who you really are behind closed doors. That has to match who you say.
How
you
did that
ever-
impact you, Laura?
Oh,
And that's a broad question. but
Yeah.
Feel free to.
I mean, it changed our whole life. So my whole life was the church. I grew up in the church, and then, being in New York was so great. Like, I loved what we did. And then when this happened, it completely shattered me.
How did you find out? How did you get knowledge to everything that was going
he
on?
Pulled me into his office. Like, some friends brought us. We were at just one night, and I don't remember a lot. But he just told me he was unfaithful, and then from there it was just this constant it felt like just wave after wave of stuff, because then the media picked up on it, and it was very, I don't even know.
Yeah, I
it
mean,
just life.
To be honest,
life
Abby,
shattering.
I got caught. It wasn't like I came clean.
Yeah.
I got caught, and I had a little bit of time to tell her before it kind of hit the news cycle. So it wasn't like an admirable, hey, let me be honest. It was a let me see what I can salvage right now. And even at that time, I didn't really know, how honest I needed to be. But yes, that's how she found out. I was able to tell her right before everybody else found out.
And Laura, why did you stay? Because in most situations, most women would be like, I'm out if my husband cheats or my wife or my man cheats.
100%.
I'm leaving. My wife said the same thing.
I was the same way. Up until it happens to you, I think things change. And the only reason I stayed is because I saw him doing the work to change. And he put himself in a position to get better. I didn't have to force him to do anything or make any decisions. He did it on his own. So for me, that was a huge thing. And then, I've talked about it before, but his childhood trauma that he had gone through, he'd kind of talked about it a little bit with me, but he'd never really explained what had happened, or he made it not a big deal. And so then during this process, in one of our therapy sessions, I saw him break down in a way I hadn't seen him break down before, when he tried to explain to the therapist what had happened, like how his abuse had taken place. And I saw a part of him that I'd never seen before. And I had compassion for him. It wasn't like an excuse or it just made more sense to me as to why he was so broken. And so I wanted to be there to see that process unfold and see how he would change and how he would work on himself. And we have kids. We've got 3 teenagers. So it was just a lot. It was a lot to process, and yeah.
Did you understand the definition of love during that time? Because, me and my wife, we went through something similar. But what was surprising to me is she basically said, I seen you so hurt and I didn't want you to hurt anymore, even though I caused the pain to her. And I was like, damn, that's a different type of love. Like,
yes.
It's not it's almost the ability to realize what real love is. Did you realize in that moment?
Yeah. I mean, it was when everything's shattered like that and the trust is gone and the betrayal that happens, it's definitely, you have a lot to think through and work on for yourself, even though he made the mistakes. But it was a time for me to really practice love, and it's not for everyone. And I know that. And if he wasn't doing the work and I didn't see him doing the work, I would have been out. I had the things in place I needed to have. I had a divorce lawyer. I had my own bank accounts. I did all the things to protect myself. Yeah.
Wow.
Your title of your book,
Real Life, Real
Love. I do think it's true that you don't know who you are until you go through something really hard. And we went through hard stuff before, but that was a moment where I think we both looked at each other and said, we do have real love. It runs deep enough for us to try to see what we can do with this mess that I made. And I do believe because our love is deep enough where we've been able to, we're never going to get through it. That's not something you ever just get over.
Never.
But the way we're going to work on it is beautiful instead of painful. So yeah,
That's also God's grace, right? Because there is nowhere that it says the woman has to stay.
Nowhere. Nowhere.
And women are not obligated to stay in no way, shape, or form.
No way.
No. And initially I thought, I said, you should go. I don't know. I mean, I didn't know what I was going to do with my own life. I was pretty lost. And so I'm grateful to be sitting here next to my wife.
Did you ever look at yourself, because you didn't help so many people, you didn't talk to so many people, I didn't spoke to you, I'm so Charlamagne. Did you ever look back and say, I might have spoke to this one woman before and she told me about her relationship and I told her to leave, and not thinking back damn, I was cheating like her man was or her husband was? Did you ever look back at life and be like, damn, maybe I gave somebody wrong information? Or did you ever think about that?
Yes, I did. And I think because I had my own lies and secrets, there was a filter that I led from that in that way was probably maybe even overly gracious. And I didn't even know it subconsciously because I know what I'm dealing with in my own life. So, but yeah, there are times I look back on the advice that I gave or something I would have preached to somebody else, and I realize I'm fully aware I wasn't doing it myself. And it's a hard reality, but you can't run from it. That's just the truth. You know, as a preacher, you are up there, admittedly a human, and you're telling people you can follow my life. The fact that I'm up here means everything that I'm doing, even if I'm wrong in some areas, but the way I'm handling my wrong is right. And when that doesn't happen, it breaks the only currency you have as a leader is trust. And I went bankrupt on that day.
You're an individual, so you can't put everything on an individual. But there was multiple scandals at Hillsong. So what would you say to people that were in the congregation who just feel let down by the whole institution of Hillsong?
I'm just deeply sorry, and I will remain deeply sorry for the rest of my life. I don't live in the shame of it, but for my role in that, which was significant, I'm sad. And I always pray that people who have been through something with a human doesn't affect their view of who God is and what church can be, because church is beautiful. I mean, it's just filled with humans. There's no perfect churches. If there was, none of us could ever set foot in there. But to our church, I've said every chance I get, I'm sorry for what I put you through. And there were some awesome things that happened, but that moment, what it did to the narrative of who we are and what our church stood for, those people didn't deserve that, because our church was filled with amazing 99.9% of people, not famous, not rich, not known, just hardworking, sacrificial, kind people. And I led our church into a place of crisis. And because God is faithful, that church has continued to go forward. There's a lot of people I have heard that have healed and moved on. There's other people that are still working it out.
I also don't think it should disqualify you from being able to speak the word. And what I mean by that is, you grow up in certain environments and they'll bring people to speak to you, to keep you on the right track. And most of those people are people who've been through the worst things themselves. Like, so it's just like, I feel like that could be the same thing with the church.
It is. I do feel that. I think that when it comes to, the type of leadership failure I had, it's appropriate for me to take a really long time. And if that ever happens again, where I feel compelled to lead a church, it'll be a really deep, long, submitted decision to a lot of people that I'm accountable to. But I'm preaching now. I'm going to preach the rest of my life with what I do, and hopefully there'll be avenues where I can use what I'm good at to do it. So I don't feel like I'm defined to that pulpit, but I'm with you. I don't think that because somebody, the Bible is real clear about what qualifies you. It's not clear about what disqualifies you. You can read it and kind of make a quick link to what you shouldn't be doing and who's disqualified. But I believe God's grace qualifies everybody to get up and try again.
Let me ask you if we should stop using words like leader, though.
What do you mean?
Like, should you, like, you're just a person that's part of the congregation who decides on certain days to share certain testimonies and certain ministries, and that can rotate. Yeah. Anybody in the church has a story to tell or can lead you.
Everybody. Yeah. But again, you accept that as a pastor, which literally means shepherd. So there is an element of it where you're owning it and you're accepting the fact that, yes, I am regular and I'm normal, but my role is not better than yours. It's just different. And that means I'm sitting here.
But also he's most times more educated, right? Because they went to school for it. So they know more than the average person who hasn't been educated in.
Yeah, but testimonies are based off experience.
Yeah, but also it's in leadership and because they go to school.
That's why I said I would get rid of the leadership title. Because I learn from people's testimonies. I learn from people's 100%. Experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to see more of.
I mean, I think that's why we had a powerful thing going on in the first place, is that although I had my obvious flaws that everybody knows about, we were honest as I knew how to be. Laura's always been honest, and our whole church was built around let's keep this as real as we can. We're up here as leaders, but we are as flawed as you. And that's the beauty of the God that we serve. I mean, we're Christians. We follow Jesus. He's the God that gives you a chance to do things you should never be able to do on your own. And so that doesn't change whether you rise or fall.
Now, how did you guys have the conversation with your kids? You said you had three teenagers. So how was that? Because that was probably one of the most difficult things I had to do. So how was that with your kids, and how did they accept it?
You can answer that.
You want me to?
I don't remember a lot of it. So you can probably remember more.
I think I could see a look on your face when you said that. You kind of might have even thought back to when. I think it's the hardest thing that's ever happened in my life. My oldest daughter, I was able to tell her in person, and she was kind and quick to forgive, but that's more of her mom's side of things. Like maybe she wasn't dealing with it. And then my second daughter had a mental health crisis. So she was in a mental health hospital, and we had to Zoom in so I could tell her, hey, something's about to come out. I don't want you to hear it from somebody else. You know, this is what I've done, and this is true. This is what's not true. And so I had to tell her over Zoom, and she looked at me and said, Dad, I appreciate you telling me, but I don't forgive you, and I don't know if I ever will.
Damn.
And I said, that's fair. I love you. You do what you need to do. And then my little son at the time, he didn't know what was going on. He does now, but he didn't at the time. It was more like, hey, we're moving. Yeah. He's like, why are we moving? Because we were told by therapists to not give a child more than they can bear, and to give him all the details of what I went through. It wasn't for his little heart and soul.
How old was he?
Now
at the
he's
time?
15. So he was
12.
12-ish. Yeah. So now we've had some serious conversations, and there's power from it. Like I found as a dad, teaching from my failure is way more powerful than my wins.
Absolutely.
To be able to look at my son and say, this is where I went wrong, son. And if we can steer our course this way, and now he knows I'm not just saying it because he's had to live through my mistakes.
Right.
So I found that to be a beautiful part of this story.
Did your daughter forgive you?
She did.
She did.
She did. It took her, damn near 2 years. But yeah, she did. And we're best friends, me and my daughter, Charlie. All my kids,
they're very close. I think because he's been so honest and so humbled by the situation, they have such a beautiful relationship. It's really lovely to see.
And they've taken your lead. Like one of our daughters said the whole time they kept looking at mom. Like however mom is, that's how we'll be. So if mom's going to trust dad, we'll trust dad. If mom's going to give him a chance. So it was interesting how they didn't necessarily let their guards down with me. They loved me, but they just kind of followed her lead. So I'm grateful that it was a gracious one.
Is the trust back?
It is now.
How long did it take? And when did you realize that you can honestly trust him again?
Probably this year we talked about that. Probably this year. But I didn't say I forgive you or could even say those words. It was last year, October, that I actually said to him, I forgive you. And it was even saying that was still really hard because you're really letting that last guard down of, okay, I'm fearfully going back into this saying that I'm trusting you again. And as someone that's gone through the betrayal, you just don't know if it's going to happen again. And so you kind of keep that up for a long time. And even to this day, we talked about it yesterday when we were recording some stuff, and I still have those moments, obviously, of doubt, and I just have to talk about it. I have to talk to him about it and communicate what's going on in my head. If I don't, I will drive myself crazy. So anytime I have a trigger or anything like that, we just talk it out.
I was going to ask, how do you know that, or how do you feel that he won't cheat on you again, that it won't happen again? How does that make you be okay?
That's a good question. I see him, I'm reminded when I do feel like I can go down that spiral again, I'm reminded and I remind myself, okay, this is true, this is what happened. And I also see him doing the work every day. I see him putting in the effort. I see him doing his therapy. I see him, he's done the rehab. He's done all the things. He's accountable to other men. He's got these things in place that are secure. That's like a security for me and a safety. So if that ever goes away, then I know that there's going to be something wrong.
Gotcha.
And it's my job to provide proof. It's her job to look for it. And I think there's a practical, which is here's my phone. And then there's a spiritual. So the practical I can handle. Spiritual, she has to almost take another chance with God, because I think that was a hard part of her journey, was she's done everything right. Beautiful wife, amazing mom. Our marriage had great parts of it, and it still went that bad. So I think, Laura's talked about her journey with coming back into trusting not just me, but trusting God.
How difficult was it for y'all to have, the conversation on y'all have a new podcast called Lights On.
Lights On.
And, y'all had a very in-depth conversation about it all. I'm sure that was probably the millionth time y'all had that conversation. So how difficult was it to have it knowing that it was going to be released for the public to hear?
You want me to go?
Yeah.
I think it was cathartic because we've waited a long time. And I didn't know if the day would ever come, and I wasn't really worried about it. I mean, once your reputation's shattered, you learn real quick, I've either got to heal my life or try to heal my image, and your image does not matter. So it's like, if the image ever comes back around, so be it. But I got my family. So if people want to think what they want to think, cool. But as it turns out, we have an opportunity now to be able to share our story, not for the purposes of, look, we're different, I'm better. It's for the purposes of, look at what we went through. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who relate to what we went through in our marriage. A lot, maybe more than the opposite side.
Correct.
So all of a sudden, we become people that are honest about our trials. And we've heard, especially Laura, I mean, she needs a new phone because of all the messages she gets from women all over the world saying, can you help me? And on my end, I do talk to a lot of men who are like, I don't want this to be my story. How can I fix this?
Well, how can I change? How can I get my wife back? I get that all the time.
And I always tell men it's different. But getting caught and being sorry you got caught is different than getting caught and realizing you want to change forever. These are two different things. Because if you're just upset you got caught, you'll just change a couple behaviors, but you don't change. So it's a matter of time. But if you will go all the way back and dig out the root, now we're talking about a different legacy and a different life and a different soul. And I chose that route because there is a part of you immediately. It's like, how many lies can I keep? What kind of damage control can I do? And then you realize, or I can just open it all up and say, God, help me, because I got to change. I don't want this to be my story. I don't want to pass this on to my son. I don't want my daughters to have to hear me talk about a good man, but yet they're looking at a man who, is hypocritical about everything I've taught them. So I cannot tell you how grateful I've been to be able to take advantage of this moment. And because when you are a preacher, you get involved in ministry, and there are things you can overlook in your own life because you're busy doing other things. And I've been in ministry. We got married, went straight into it, 23 some years old. And there was things in my life I should have gotten to, and I just didn't. And I'm not wasting that chance now.
What about you, Laura? How was it for you?
I forget the question.
That first conversation on the podcast.
It was very cathartic. It was super healing, and being able to, I think, know that we're able to bring hope to other people. And like Carl said, the amount of messages that I would get over the years, the last few years, like DMs, how do I do that? How can I trust? How can I, all these things. I'm like, oh my God, there's just no one talks about it. Like there is, but there's not a lot of it, of people staying and working and getting, getting better. And so for me, being able to bring that hope to other women and to men, that's been a beautiful part of the story. It's kind of made it worth it, going through this. So
I think I want people to listen to the podcast, because if you read things and you see Pastor Carl says he was pushed to cheat, first thing a person will be like, can't nobody push you to cheat. You made a choice.
Yeah.
Can you speak to some of that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't control those narratives. As y'all know, being big time public figures on a level I couldn't understand, you get narratives you can do nothing about. I didn't say that. Like I literally, I've been as clear as I can. That's why I'm cool with the narrative. It's like, if you don't want to take the time to listen to what we said, why are you reading stories about it? Like, why do you have to go to a story when we're sitting here telling you ourselves? You don't have to watch some biased report or something. So I think when people say stuff like that, it doesn't get to me because I know they didn't see it. I know they didn't listen. They didn't want to listen. They wanted to go in with a vision and a narrative of me, and they wanted to keep it. Yeah. Nothing I can do, but I cannot control other people's opinions about me. And that's been sadly a revelation in this chapter, because before I was like, you know what, I got to change your mind, and I'm going to impact you. And in my mind, I'm thinking I can change stuff like that. But now I have accepted, through my own recovery and rehab, I've accepted things I never accepted before, which is, if you don't like me and you think I'm a bad person, I accept that.
Absolutely.
There's nothing I can do about it.
What I like about it is just that as men, we realize that when we commit infidelity, it's a level of brokenness. It's brokenness in us. Doesn't have anything to do with the woman. Nothing. Has nothing to do with the circumstances you may be in. It's just something that that's broken inside of you that causes you to do that. And I don't know. I like when men speak to that.
Yeah. No, thank you for the encouragement. I think it's hard. I didn't ever dream that this would be my story to stand on, but you got to do what you got to do. And I think sometimes when Laura was saying nobody talks about it, most of the time when you hear about marriage reconstruction, it's from people that had a bad marriage and they built their life back up, and that's their story. Ours is not that. We've had to rise and fall in public, so it has a different weight to it.
I was going to ask. So when it did happen, right? I was watching something, and so now you're in New York City and everything is great, right? You guys are making money, everything is good. but now this happens, right? So what happens from there? Because now your fame is gone, the money is gone, and but you still got to survive. But not only survive, you're dealing with this as well. But now you still got to pay the bills. You have kids. You got to pay for food, and now you're in COVID. So I know that you had to drive Uber Eats or Uber.
Uber Eats, yeah. I definitely was working a bunch of different jobs
so
that I
break
never
that
thought
down
I would.
of when you guys left New York and how that happened.
Well, I'll go first because I see you looking at me. So, I mean, no one plans on blowing up their life. We just sold a house, and then all this stuff happened, and we didn't have a ton of money. That the narrative just isn't true, and we never did what we did for money. So, I had some friends help us out, which is a hard pill to swallow. I mean, friends literally had to give us money so we could continue to live. And I kept reading narratives about us being in LA, shopping stories and stuff. I just was like, man, if people really knew. So on this journey, Envy, we found out that it's a really ugly, dark world when you fall out of a position like I had. There's not a whole lot of people out there. We had some really faithful friends stick with us. I think someone said when you go through something like this, some friends stand beside you, and some choose to stand behind you.
Of course.
And I don't judge either one, but I'm so grateful for the people that stood beside us in the middle of our worst day. So we've had a bunch of jobs. I had to go get a regular job.
What's a regular job for Carl Lentz? Because you can't do Uber. They're like, yo, Carl!
I can see you working in the mall.
Hey, me too. Middle of the mall with jewelry. I would crush that. Shout out to Riff Raff. Middle of the mall. I think I had a friend who said I know a guy who runs a marketing agency, and he works for basically what is a traveling type leadership conference. And so I went in there and had an interview, and I said, I need a job. I'm willing to do whatever you need. And I loved it. I did good. Turns out I'm okay at marketing. Who knew? So I think it was a cool experience to get away from the pressure of all that.
Had to be humbling though.
Oh yeah, but I almost lost my family. So from there, nothing. I don't care about anything. It's
right.
Like somebody once they came to my office. They were like, "Man, I don't even think they meant it to be mean." But he goes, "Man, do you ever think about how far you've fallen?" And I'm like,
Jesus.
I'm like,
but you had the wrestler hair too. You had the long wrestler hair.
A witness protection program.
Witness protection.
I said, no, I don't really think about how far I've fallen because I don't look at it like that.
Right.
That's not how I frame this. Like I'm standing in a place of healing and wholeness. I don't relate to the fall like that. I'm grateful that I got through it. So it was humbling, but at the same time, who can't use more humility? So I'll never forget that moment. I know I'm not cut out to per se sit behind a desk. It was tough.
Yeah.
But I had that job and then did whatever it took. And she started 2 businesses, worked at a retail store, and did Uber Eats if she had to. And then, we got to make it work.
And when did it start to turn around? When did you? Because it always happens, right?
Yeah.
Nobody calls your phone.
Nope.
Nobody, wants to be next to you, and then it starts to change. Mm-hmm. When did that change start to happen?
Probably maybe the second year, midway through, people started to come around when it was less radioactive. And money-wise, I think we just had to restart everything. We lost everything, but we were happy without money. We were happy with it, and then happy without it. And then we learned on this chapter, it's like, cool, we know exactly who we are. We know what our values are. It's always, anybody who says money doesn't matter, I'm like, it's always better to have money. It is. But yeah, so we're on a journey of rebuilding that. But it took a while for people to come back around.
I hated how Hillsong did you. It was like a public, I never seen a pastor get fired. Like it was like they actually put it out there but then, fast forward, Brian Houston got caught up in a bunch of scandals, and so like, did you feel like you wanted to give them the same grace that they didn't give you? How did you, when you started hearing stuff about them, how did you take it in your heart?
Definitely hard, and I put them in a position to respond a certain way to me, and I don't even judge it or look at it. Other people can, but I know I was taught just to stay on my side of the track. So my role in that story was I failed. I did. And I wish it would have been handled differently. That would have been beautiful. It just isn't what happened. And as you can see, stuff's going to play out as it's going to play out. You can't hide. Nobody can hide. So if you're pointing fingers at somebody, be very secure in the fact that you either have a really clean life or you have locked away your secrets so good that nobody can go get them. And I think, so we're human. I mean, a lot of that stuff hurt really bad. But at the same time, I failed. I let them down. And that's the way I choose to keep it, because otherwise my heart can get bitter quick. And I wish him the best.
Was there any joy in seeing everybody else?
I will say for me, there was definitely a little bit of
Talk that talk.
There was a little bit of like only because
Mama Cub right there.
yeah, because of how they treated him.
Mm-hmm.
And for years before this, there was always things that they would hide or protect or whatever. But for some reason, because it was him and it was a big deal, they just chose to protect the brand. And even though I begged, please don't do it. Like for my kids, my daughter is in a hospital right now. Like, can we just do it? Like, does it have to be this way? And I felt like they doubled down on that. And it just was this constant wave of and it wasn't just one time they talked shit, like for me, that was really hard because I have kids and my kids see it all. And it wasn't like he was out there being like, F you, I'm going to do whatever I wanted. He came out, got caught, apologized, like did all the things that he was told to do. And then we went into hiding. Like we just wanted to focus on our family, and no one heard from us, but they just kept talking. And so for me, that was really hard to stay quiet and to just take it was really hard.
So when you saw Brian,
so when I saw that, I was like, oh wow, like it's gonna come back to you. So,
absolutely, yeah.
And it was just sad to watch the way that went down. So I was very sad about that. But
I was always just confused because I know all the secrets. And I'm going, y'all are being really reckless with your finger pointing, knowing that I am very involved in everything that's happened at this church. Why would you do that? But I knew it wasn't my job. I still don't feel like it's necessarily my job to, point at stuff. I got so much to work on here that I'll let Laura say what she said, because that's equally true. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm just gonna, make sure I'm never in that spot again.
So how do you keep those secrets though? If Brian Houston might be doing something that he had got no business doing, or he might be covering something up. How do you keep those secrets?
Well, you tell yourself that it's not secret keeping, it's protecting. And there's truth to that. Like there are some things when you're in a leadership position that you should protect people. It's none of their business. It's like someone's going through something, that's not your business. That's between them and God. And then there's another part of it. Now I look back and I'm like, you know what? Some of that stuff that's happened, we should have just been honest about it as a church the whole time we were a part of it. Not Hillsong, New York City, just as a global church. Why not just set a new precedent? And when stuff happens, be honest about it, be real. And then there's a point where you got to step back and protect the humans that are involved. And we didn't get that.
We didn't get the protection.
We didn't get that.
I was going to ask, with everything, there was so many rumors going around, and like anything else, we don't know what's true and what's false. There was a rumor that you were addicted to drugs. Was that true?
Yes, I had a prescription drug addiction that I found out when I went to rehab for everything. I was like, I don't know, I got all kinds of issues, and I got there and realized that I had sucked myself into a really rigid prescription drug addiction. And it's harder when you have doctors giving you stuff. It's not like I'm out there doing cocaine or heroin. I was taking medicine that I was prescribed. And I started to take too much of it, and I started to go to another doctor, and I had multiple sources, and I just stayed fueled with something that enabled me to compartmentalize better, enabled me to keep going. So I often say, like, my car was broken, but I had so much fuel in it, I was able to ride that thing for too long. So that is true, that I struggle with addiction with drugs.
Now, another rumor, and I don't know, they said that, which I thought was hilarious. They said you had a relationship with Justin Bieber. Did you see that relationship as well?
No.
I seen that too. There was a video of you and him in the pool. They was
were
like
saying that before. You know that. They were saying that before the scandal. Before the scandal.
Any other crazy rumor that you heard about yourself? Like this just not is true.
I think that
yourself, Laura.
No.
I mean, there's one, like, I don't even want to talk. I don't want to give it any light. I think there was a lot of craziness said. I think the narrative about what kind of church we had, what kind of leadership, and there's nobody defending anything, and that's hard.
That's the difficult part.
I remember sitting there going, I wish somebody would stand up and say, well, that's not true.
But did you ever feel that way? And I guess Charlamagne just tells me, don't expect it. But out of so many people that you
ignore
helped,
it. I say, I don't say don't expect it.
No, meaning don't expect people to come to your defense. But so many people that you helped, and so many people that you guided, and that you were there for. Now, when you're at your darkest, not one person said, you know what? Nah, that's not the case. Did you ever feel that way? Like, damn.
There were a couple, they just don't get any pub. So there were people that stood out. I know it's different. Her journey is different because for me, it reminded me my motive. So the people that I looked out for and protected, when they didn't give that back, it was a good moment for me to check myself. Why did I do it in the first place? I didn't love this guy and protect him so someday it would be reciprocated. I did it because I felt like it was right. And it was hard because the temptation is to go, I did this for you. Right. I've been there for you in your darkest hour, and you're going to run from me. And then you got to remind yourself, I didn't do it for that. And you owe me you don't owe me anything. Right. But I think it would have been cool on the church side for people to be like, no, there's a failure here, but it doesn't mean this whole thing, is necessarily, bad. So yeah, it was tough.
Laura?
Yeah, I think for no one to be there for him, because he is that loyal friend, and he would do anything for anyone, that needed it. So when there was no one there for him, that was really tough. It was tough to watch.
Yeah. You were there. I appreciate you. There was a lot of people
a lot outside of the church too.
A lot of my close friends did not flinch at all. It's like, man, what you did was wrong, and I hope you get it right, but I'm not going to leave you. That was a lot of my friends. Just some friends didn't go like that.
Does it change your motive? Does it change who you are as a person, right? Do you think about helping somebody? Do you give them a second thought before you do it now because you're like, why would I do it? I'll start with you, Laura.
Not really. I feel like helping people is like part of my calling, really. So I've never done anything for that motive. If you can help me, I can help you, or you weren't there for me, I'm not going to help you. Like if someone came around now, I would definitely give them grace and,
But
be
does
there
it
for
close
them.
you off now? Does it make you not accessible to as many people as you might have been before?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm definitely more closed off with that.
For sure.
Yeah.
And someone said to me, they said, did fame and spotlight change you? And my answer was not enough. They were expecting me to try to, I kept it real. No, I think as your life grows and you get older and more mature, everything should change with it. I lived the exact same way. It was a First Colonial High School in Virginia Beach, and then it became Madison Square Garden, doing the same thing. I'm gonna support who's on that court and whatever. And I didn't change my life enough. And that's half the reason I got where I was I tried to keep the same boundaries, which were very minimal, which I could get away with. When I'm 29 and a youth pastor, can't do that when your life is bigger and you have more responsibilities. So it didn't change me enough. I look back and go, I should have adapted way better.
I remember when you text me apologizing, trying to explain something. I'm like, why are you apologizing to me? You my guy, and especially for something like, what kind of hypocrite would I be? Like what kind of hypocrite would I be to turn my back on a friend because they got caught cheating on their wife? Like you got to deal with that with your family.
Yeah,
you're still my guy.
Thank you.
And if I can help, I'm gonna be here to help.
I think you feel like you let so many people down, especially people who are with you in public. Like I think so. It's just I don't know how to explain that feeling. I don't know if you guys can relate to it, but when you feel like you've let people down, you just want to as many people as you can. So I'm sorry, and then you realize at some point you got to trust who's with you and who's not.
Right.
And I know after talking to you and some other friends that I love dearly, they just were like, man, we're not going anywhere. We have faith that you're going to turn this thing around, and I appreciate it.
Do you want to be a pastor again?
You do what? What was that?
Do you want to be a pastor again? You want to lead a church again?
No, I don't have any desire to do that. I'm not opposed to anything. Like I know too much about God to ever give him any of my absolute do's and don'ts.
Right.
So I'm open to anything, but I don't have anything in me right now that's like I want to pastor a church. I want to do that again. I actually really enjoy this podcast. This whole B-side team that I'm on. It's a new app that's really cool, and it's about vulnerable discussions. So I love the fact that we can do what we're good at, and at the same time, still take a lot of time to heal. So I don't know the answer to that, Envy, but I'm open to whatever God wants.
One person I know that was really let down was Justin Bieber. Did you ever attempt to reach out to him?
Yeah, I'm going to keep that just offline because I feel like when some people, I let down in a major way, and I was somebody in their life that was given a lot of trust. And as you know, in this world, all you have is trust. I can't give you money. I can't give you access. The only reason we have a relationship is trust. Right. And with some of my friends, I violated that. And so it might take them decades. They may never come back around. And I deal with that as it comes. For the people that do come back around, I'm grateful. For those that don't, man, I get it. And I love you just the same, and I pray. So I think with some of those relationships, I just keep it in offline, and just there have been some cool stories though of coming back around.
Yeah, I guess the toughest thing is when you hear people say things like, "Oh, well, if he was lying about that, then he's lying about everything." That's not true. I just don't believe that.
Me neither, but that's something you have to deal with when you get, especially in my position. It's like, and Laura has been awesome with some of that, helping people understand. Like, it's true. Just because you lie about one thing doesn't mean everything isn't true. But man, it's a fair criticism. So it's something you got to eat when you're in my position. Going, no, I didn't lie about everything in my life. Just like you don't lie about everything in your life when you lie. But I get it too.
Laura,
there's one thing about being. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Laura, do you see himself? What's the word I'm looking for? Overproving himself. Like you say, hey, where'd you go today? Today I went to the mall. Here's the receipt. I went to the mall. And here's the. Do you see him doing that?
He did in the very beginning. He would tell me if he's going to the mall, but he stops at the gas station on the way. He would tell me, hey, I'm stopping at the gas station before I go to the mall, because he was trying to build that trust. Right. And I appreciate it. And then you get to the point where you're like, okay, you don't have to tell me. You're like tying your shoes.
I'm at the mall.
Yeah.
Right.
So and I appreciated that at first, because it is a way that you build trust and safety. And so
up until yesterday, I still
he still does it all the time. But
yeah.
I love it.
You love it.
Yeah.
Is one of the reasons you wouldn't want to be a pastor again because you feel like maybe your messages people wouldn't take them as credible?
No, I don't think that. Right. I think that if we ever led a church and pastored again, it would be even more credible, to be honest with you. But I don't know where the church establishment is headed right now. So I like being in a position to see what's going on and speak to it and to watch it, because I know there's so much stuff. People are shifting. The way we do church is different. So on one hand, it's really fortunate to be on the sideline in that one field going, and I still talk to a lot of pastors. I do executive coaching. A lot of it's with pastors. So I'm still deeply involved, still love the church. But I'm enjoying going home at 5 at times and just going to be with my own kids, you know? So it's been a breath of fresh air.
That's right. Well, we appreciate you guys for joining us. Check out Lights On with Carl Lentz.
That's right.
Streaming on the B-side.
Are you going to be on every episode, Laura?
No.
Okay.
Pretty
much. For a little while I will. I enjoy it.
People want to hear what she has to say way more than me, but she's going to do her own.
Do you like the fame? Ready. Do you like people coming up to you knowing who you are now, or is it difficult for you?
Not real. I mean, I don't really.
She's Australian. Australian people just kind of just roll with it.
Let's roll with the punches.
Thank y'all for having us, though.
Thank you so much, you guys.
So love you too, brother. Where can they subscribe to it? Wherever the podcasts are?
So B-Side, it's an app that you can download and get everything there first, but then the rest of the podcast is top 10, the first couple of days, which is really encouraging to see, and it's on every platform.
All right. Well, it's Carl Lentz. It's Laura Lentz. Thank you so much for joining us. It's The Breakfast Club. Good morning.
Thank you.
Wake that ass up early in the morning. The Breakfast Club.